The galactic combat arena buzzed with excitement as thousands of alien spectators filled the massive amphitheater. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of species, all eager to witness what many considered a cosmic joke. At the center of the arena stood two figures that couldn't have been more different. Commander of the Empire towered 9 feet tall, his 4 muscular arms ending in razor-sharp claws that could slice through steel. His exoskeleton gleamed under the arena lights, and the bioplasma cannons grafted to his shoulders hummed with deadly energy. Behind him, his weapon rack displayed an arsenal that would make any warrior jealous: molecular disruptors, gravity hammers, and energy blades that could cut through starship hulls. Across from him stood Captain Sarah, a human woman barely 5.5 feet tall. She wore simple military fatigues with no armor, no visible weapons, and carried only a small water bottle. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her calm brown eyes surveyed the arena with quiet confidence. The crowd's laughter grew louder as they took in the sight. In the VIP section, Ambassador of the Trade Federation shook his tentacled head in amusement. "This is absurd," he wheezed to his companions. "The humans actually sent someone to fight with no weapons? They must have misunderstood the challenge." High Arbiter of the referee activated her voice amplifier. "Citizens of the galaxy, today we witness a formal combat challenge between the Empire and the human delegation. The terms are simple: single combat to submission or incapacitation. The victor's species gains priority in the disputed sector mining rights." Flexed his 4 arms, each movement causing his bioplasma cannons to whir menacingly. He had never lost a fight, and his reputation as the greatest warrior in the fleet was legendary. The idea that these soft, weak humans thought they could challenge him was insulting. "Little human," his voice boomed through his translator, causing the arena to fall silent. "I studied your species before coming here. You are weak creatures who rely entirely on tools and weapons because you cannot fight with your natural bodies. You have no claws, no armor, no bioweapons. Without your machines, you are nothing but prey animals." Sarah remained silent, slowly unscrewing the cap of her water bottle and taking a small sip. The simple action somehow drew every eye in the arena. His mandibles clicked in annoyance at her lack of response. "Look at you. You didn't even bring weapons to a combat challenge. This is pathetic even for your species. My research shows humans cannot fight without tools. You probably expect me to give you a weapon out of pity." The crowd erupted in laughter again. In the human delegation section, Ambassador Williams gripped his chair's armrests tightly. He had argued against sending Sarah, but she had volunteered immediately when they issued their challenge. Something about her confidence had convinced the human leadership to trust her judgment. Sarah finished her water and set the bottle aside. For the first time, she looked directly at and spoke, her voice carrying clearly through her throat mic to the arena's speakers. "You're right about one thing," she said calmly. "Humans do use tools. We use them because we're smart enough to make them, but you made one mistake in your research." "What mistake could I have made?" snarled. "I studied every human conflict, every battle report. You always hide behind weapons and machines." Sarah's lips curved into a slight smile. "You studied our wars, our battles with weapons and machines, but you never studied what we were like before we had those things. You never looked at how humans survived for thousands of years when we had nothing but our hands." She raised her right hand slowly, palm facing. Her fingers were relaxed, and to the crowd it looked like the most non-threatening gesture imaginable. "Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being the strongest or the fastest," Sarah continued. "We became dominant because we never gave up, because we adapted to every environment, because when cornered, we didn't just fight back, we fought smart." Its bioplasma cannons began to charge, their whining growing louder. "Enough talk. You have no weapons, no natural defenses. I will end this quickly and claim the mining rights for the Empire." "You're welcome to try," Sarah said, beckoning him forward with that same raised hand. "Come closer." The gesture infuriated. The arrogance of this tiny creature, standing there with no weapons, inviting him to attack as if she had some hidden advantage. He would show the entire galaxy what happened when inferior species challenged superiority. He charged forward with a roar that shook the arena walls. His 4 arms spread wide to grab and crush the human, while his bioplasma cannons prepared to fire at point-blank range. The crowd held its breath, expecting to see the human obliterated in seconds. But Sarah didn't move backward. Instead, she stepped forward to meet his charge. At the last possible moment, as massive claws reached for her, Sarah dropped low and to the side. Her movement was so fluid and unexpected that momentum carried him past her. As he stumbled, trying to adjust his trajectory, Sarah's hand shot out and struck a specific point just below his shoulder joint. The crowd gasped as upper right arm went completely limp, the bioplasma cannon powering down with a disappointed whine. He spun around, confusion and rage warring in his compound eyes. "What did you do?" he demanded, cradling his useless arm. "Pressure point," Sarah said simply. "Humans have been studying anatomy for centuries. We know exactly where to hit to disrupt nerve clusters. Your exoskeleton has gaps at the joints, evolutionary weak points that most species share." Snarled and swung his remaining 3 arms at her in a coordinated attack. Sarah weaved between the strikes with an almost dance-like grace, her movements economical and precise. Each time she evaded, she managed to land a quick strike of her own, a finger jab here, a palm strike there, each targeting specific nerve clusters. Within 30 seconds, had lost the use of 2 more limbs. His remaining bioplasma cannon was offline, and he was struggling to maintain his balance with only 1 functional arm. The arena had fallen completely silent, except for labored breathing, and the soft sound of Sarah's boots on the arena floor. "This is impossible," whispered Ambassador in the VIP section. "She's dismantling him without weapons, without armor. How is a human doing this?" Down in the arena, backed away from Sarah, his compound eyes wide with something he'd never experienced before: fear. You're using some kind of human technology, some invisible weapon." Sarah shook her head. "No technology, just knowledge passed down from human to human for thousands of generations. Every species in the galaxy developed claws or armor or bioweapons. Humans developed something different. We learned to use our minds." She demonstrated by pointing to specific spots on her own body. "Humans mapped every pressure point, every nerve cluster, every weakness in biological anatomy. We had to because we were physically weaker than most predators on our planet. So we learned to fight smarter." Made one last desperate charge, hopping to overwhelm her with pure mass and momentum. Sarah waited until he was almost upon her, then dropped to one knee and drove her fist upward into a specific point on his torso. The massive warrior collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. He wasn't unconscious, but every voluntary muscle in his body had stopped responding to his commands. He lay on the arena floor, able only to move his eyes and speak. "How?" he gasped. Sarah knelt beside him, her expression sympathetic rather than triumphant. "The vagus nerve cluster. It controls most of your involuntary muscle functions. A precise strike there causes temporary paralysis without permanent damage. You'll be fine in about an hour." She stood and looked up at High Arbiter. "I believe that constitutes submission." The referee, still processing what she had witnessed, slowly raised her ceremonial staff. "Victor, Captain Sarah of the Human Federation." For a moment, the arena remained silent. Then, from the human delegation section, a single person began to applaud. The sound was quickly picked up by others, spreading through the crowd until the entire amphitheater thundered with appreciation. Ambassador Williams made his way down to the arena floor, his face showing a mixture of relief and amazement. "Captain, that was extraordinary. How did you know you could defeat him?" Sarah helped lift his head slightly to make him more comfortable while they waited for medical assistance. "I studied his species for weeks before coming here, evolved on a low-gravity world with few natural predators. They developed strength and bioweapons, but they never needed to develop the kind of precise fighting techniques that humans had to learn." "But the research he mentioned," Williams pressed, "about humans always fighting with weapons." "He was right," Sarah admitted. "We do prefer to fight with weapons when we have them, but he made the assumption that because we use tools, we're helpless without them. That's not true. We use tools because we're smart enough to make them, not because we need them to survive." Managed to speak, his voice weak but clear. I underestimated your species. I thought physical weakness meant combat weakness." "Physical strength is just one factor in combat," Sarah replied gently. "Humans learned that the mind is the most powerful weapon of all. We can't always be the strongest or the fastest, but we can always be smarter." Medical teams from several species rushed into the arena to tend to. As they worked to counteract the temporary paralysis, Sarah stood and surveyed the crowd. Thousands of alien faces looked back at her with expressions ranging from amazement to concern to newfound respect. In the days following the combat challenge, the victory would have far-reaching consequences. The sector mining rights were just the beginning. Word of the humans' unexpected victory would spread throughout the galaxy, challenging long-held assumptions about human capabilities. But for now, Sarah simply picked up her water bottle, took another sip, and walked calmly toward the exit. Behind her was slowly regaining feeling in his limbs, and the crowd continued to buzz with excited conversation about what they had just witnessed. The message was clear. Underestimating humans was a dangerous mistake. They might not have the biggest claws or the strongest armor, but they had something potentially more valuable: the intelligence to turn any situation to their advantage and the determination never to give up. As Sarah reached the arena exit, she paused and looked back one more time. Was sitting up now, flexing his fingers as sensation returned to his hands. Their eyes met across the distance, and the warrior nodded once, a gesture of respect between combatants. Sarah nodded back and disappeared through the exit, leaving behind an arena full of aliens who would never look at humans the same way again. The galaxy had just learned a valuable lesson about the species from Earth. They might be small, they might look weak, but they were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 3 weeks after the arena incident, the Galactic Trade Station Nexus Prime hummed with activity as usual. Merchants from across the galaxy haggled over rare minerals, exotic technologies, and shipping contracts. But today, there was an underlying tension in the air that even the most focused traders couldn't ignore. In the station's central plaza, a crowd had gathered around a holographic display showing news feeds from across known space. The feeds all carried variations of the same story. Human defeats champion without weapons. Upset victory shakes galactic combat rankings. Are humans more dangerous than previously thought? Commander of the Hegemony Defense Force pushed through the crowd, his scaled hide rippling with annoyance. As a veteran of dozens of conflicts, he found the whole situation ridiculous. One lucky human had caught one overconfident off guard. It hardly meant the species was suddenly a threat. "Excuse me, Commander," a voice said behind him. Turned to see Dr. Han, a respected whose research on human behavior had been circulating through military channels. "Could I have a word?" His yellow eyes narrowed. "If this is about those reports you've been spreading, Doctor, I'm not interested. One combat doesn't prove anything." "That's exactly what I wanted to discuss," Dr. Han said, her tentacles writhing in what recognized as excitement. "I've been analyzing the arena footage frame by frame. What that human did wasn't luck or a fluke. It was the application of systematic knowledge." "Systematic knowledge of what?" demanded. "Of how to kill," Dr. Han said quietly. "Commander, humans have been killing things for their entire evolutionary history, not just for survival, for sport, for study, for efficiency. They've mapped the vulnerabilities of thousands of species, including their own." Scales darkened with skepticism. "Every predator species has hunting knowledge." "Not like this," the doctor insisted. "Most predators evolved to kill specific prey types. Humans evolved to kill everything. They studied anatomy not just to hunt, but to understand. They developed martial arts, entire systems dedicated to disabling opponents with minimal effort." Before could respond, a commotion erupted near the plaza's main entrance. A group of human traders had arrived for their regular supply run, led by a man named who had been running cargo routes through this sector for years. The other species in the plaza watched the humans with new wariness. These were the same humans they had been trading with for months, people they had considered harmless merchants. But after seeing what one unarmed human could do to a champion, even a simple handshake felt potentially dangerous. Noticed the change immediately. Where before aliens had approached his group with casual friendliness, now they kept their distance. Conversations stopped when humans walked by, and several species subtly positioned themselves near exits. "Hey," called to a merchant he had done business with for years. "You got those crystal matrices I ordered?" His feathers ruffled nervously. Yes, they're here, but I was wondering, is it true what they're saying about your people, that you can kill without weapons?" Blinked in surprise. "Kill without weapons? I mean, technically anyone can, but why would you ask something like that?" "The arena fight," explained. The human who defeated, she used no weapons, but she disabled him completely. They're saying all humans know how to do this. A crowd was gathering around their conversation, aliens pressing closer to hear response. He looked around at the nervous faces and suddenly understood what was happening. "Look, guys," said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. The movement made several aliens flinch backward, and he immediately lowered his arms. "That captain, she's military, special forces or something. Most of us don't know how to fight like that." "But you could learn," pressed a traitor, his multiple eyes fixed on intently. Consider the question. "I guess so. Humans learn all kinds of things. Some people learn music, some learn engineering, some learn combat techniques. It's just knowledge." "Just knowledge," Dr. Han repeated from the edge of the crowd. "Do you hear that, Commander? To them, the ability to kill efficiently is just knowledge, something any of them can acquire if they choose to." The implications of this statement rippled through the gathered aliens. Species like they were powerful because they were born with weapons. The collective was dangerous because of their natural armor, but humans were dangerous because they could learn to be dangerous. In the days that followed, the incident at the trade station was reported throughout the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and varied. Some species, like the peaceful, reached out to human diplomats requesting non-aggression pacts. Others, like the warrior caste, issued formal challenges to human military leaders. But it was the response of the Empire that would prove most significant. In his private chambers aboard the flagship Dominion, sat before a holographic display showing everything his intelligence network had gathered about human combat capabilities. His recovery from the arena fight had been complete, but his pride remained wounded. More importantly, his defeat had political ramifications for the Empire. "The mining rights were just the beginning," his aide, Sub-Commander L, reported. "3 more systems have refused our expansion proposals, citing the humans as potential allies. They're saying if humans can defeat our greatest warrior, maybe the Empire isn't as invincible as we claim." His mandibles clicked in frustration. One fight doesn't prove anything about their military capabilities. "Perhaps not," L agreed. "But the psychological impact is undeniable. The galaxy sees us as weakened. We need to restore our reputation." "What are you suggesting?" "A larger demonstration," L said carefully. "Not a formal challenge this time, but a test of their defensive capabilities. If we can prove that their victory was a fluke, that humans are still the weak species we believed them to be, our reputation will be restored." Studied the intelligence reports more carefully. According to their data, the human colony world of New Haven was lightly defended, a small security force, and a civilian population focused on agricultural development. It would be a perfect target for a demonstration of superiority. "Schedule a fleet exercise in the New Haven system," ordered. "Nothing official, just a routine patrol that happens to test their response capabilities. And if they respond aggressively, then we'll have the excuse we need to show the galaxy what happens when inferior species challenge the Empire," replied. His bioplasma cannons hummed softly as they powered up, responding to his emotional state. Meanwhile, on New Haven itself, colonist Dr. James Park was analyzing soil samples when his communication device chimed with an urgent message from the Colonial Defense Force. As the settlement's xenobiology consultant, he was being asked to review intelligence reports about potential fleet movements in their system. James set aside his soil analysis and pulled up the reports. The information was concerning but not entirely unexpected. After Captain Serena's victory, several human colonies had been placed on elevated alert status. The concern was that some alien species might test human defenses to see if the arena performance was representative of broader human capabilities. What James found most interesting wasn't the tactical analysis, but the psychological profiles that had been attached to the reports. Human psychologists had been studying alien reactions to the arena fight, and their conclusions were fascinating. Most alien species, it turned out, viewed combat ability as an inherent trait. Strong species were naturally strong, fast species were naturally fast, and clever species were naturally clever. The idea that these traits could be learned, developed, and taught was foreign to most alien thinking. Humans, on the other hand, had always understood that capability was more about training and knowledge than natural gifts. They expected to learn new skills throughout their lives, to adapt to new challenges, to become more than what they were born to be. This philosophical difference was creating a galaxy-wide misunderstanding. Aliens who saw Captain's performance assumed all humans possessed similar combat skills. They didn't understand that her abilities were the result of years of training, study, and practice that any human could theoretically undertake. James was reviewing these psychological profiles when his neighbor, Maria Santos, knocked on his door. Maria was a former Earth military engineer who had retired to New Haven to help with infrastructure development. "James, you've seen the reports about possible activity in our system," Maria asked without preamble. "Just finished reading them. You think they're planning something?" Maria nodded grimly. "The fleet movements are too systematic to be random. They're probing our defenses, testing our response times, classic pre-action reconnaissance." "What do we do about it?" "We prepare," Maria said simply. "The Colonial Defense Force is good, but they're not expecting a major engagement. If they are planning to make an example of us, we need to be ready." "Ready how? We're farmers and scientists, not soldiers." Maria's expression grew thoughtful. "That's what they're counting on. But James, every human on this colony has skills that could be adapted for defense. You know xenobiology. You understand alien anatomy better than most military personnel. Doctor is a mining engineer. She knows explosives. Runs the hydroponics bay. He understands chemical processes. You're talking about turning civilians into combatants." "I'm talking about humans doing what humans do best," Maria replied. "Adapting, learning, using our brains to overcome superior force. Captain showed the galaxy one way humans can be dangerous. Maybe it's time to show them there are others." Over the next several days, word spread through the New Haven colony that preparations were being made for potential conflict. But rather than panic, the response was something that would have surprised most alien observers: methodical problem-solving. Doctor began creating detailed maps of the colony's underground mining tunnels, identifying strategic positions and potential shelter areas. And his agricultural team started analyzing local plants for potential defensive applications: which ones were toxic, which could be used to create smoke screens, which could be processed into useful chemicals. James found himself at the center of a group developing what they called species-specific countermeasures. Using his knowledge of alien biology and the colony's scientific database, they began identifying the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of potential attackers. "Have excellent physical strength and those bioplasma cannons," James explained to the group. "But their exoskeletons make them vulnerable to certain frequencies of sound. Their compound eyes have blind spots in certain light spectra, and their respiratory system doesn't handle certain atmospheric compositions well." "Can we use any of that?" asked Doctor. "Maybe," James said. "If we modify the mining sonic excavators, we could create sound weapons. The atmospheric processors could be adjusted to create localized atmospheric changes, and chemical knowledge could help us develop compounds that would be harmless to humans but problematic for physiology." What was emerging was a perfect example of human adaptability in action. Faced with a potential threat from a physically superior species, the colonists weren't trying to match strengths. Instead, they were identifying weaknesses and developing ways to exploit them using the tools and knowledge they already possessed. The psychological implications were staggering. If a colony of farmers and scientists could develop effective countermeasures against one of the galaxy's premier warrior species in a matter of days, what did that say about human military potential? As news of the New Haven preparations leaked through various intelligence networks, the galactic community began to reconsider their assumptions about humanity. The arena fight had shown that humans could be individually dangerous. The New Haven situation suggested that they could be collectively dangerous as well. But the real test was yet to come. His fleet was moving into position, and soon the galaxy would discover whether human adaptability could overcome military superiority. The stakes were higher than mining rights now. They were about the future balance of power in known space. In his final report before the fleet reached New Haven, James wrote, "Humanity's greatest strength has never been our physical capabilities. It has been our ability to learn, adapt, and apply knowledge in unexpected ways. If they are expecting to face the same humans they've read about in their military reports, they may be in for a surprise. We're not the same species we were yesterday because humans never stay the same. We evolve, we improve, and we never stop learning." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Haven system with the precision of a military parade. 12 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon arrays and shield generators. At their center, the flagship Dominion displayed the full might of engineering. Bioplasma cannons capable of reducing mountains to ash, armor that could withstand direct hits from most known weapons, and shields that had never been breached in combat. On the bridge of the Dominion, Commander studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. New Haven appeared exactly as his intelligence reports had described. A small agricultural colony with minimal defenses, a handful of civilian spacecraft, and no significant military presence. The perfect target for restoring prestige. Long-range scans confirm the colony composition, reported his tactical officer. Approximately 8,000 human civilians, mostly engaged in agricultural and scientific pursuits. Their defensive capabilities appear limited to a small security force with light weapons and basic shields. No hidden military installations, asked. None detected. The largest structures are agricultural processing facilities and research laboratories. There are some mining operations, but nothing that suggests military preparation. His mandibles clicked with approval. After his humiliation in the arena, he needed a decisive victory to restore his reputation and prove that humans were still the weak species the galaxy had originally assessed them to be. A quick, overwhelming demonstration of superiority would send the right message to every system considering human alliances. Begin the approach, he ordered. Standard intimidation formation. I want them to surrender before we need to fire a shot. But as the fleet moved deeper into the system, sensors began detecting anomalous readings from the planet's surface. Commander, the sensor officer called out, confusion evident in his voice. I'm reading unusual atmospheric disturbances around the colony sites. Localized pressure variations, chemical concentrations that don't match standard terraforming profiles. Elaborate. It's difficult to explain, sir. The atmospheric composition keeps changing in small areas around the settlements. Different chemical mixtures, varying oxygen levels, temperature fluctuations. It's almost like they're experimenting with their environmental systems. Frowned, environmental experimentation wasn't threatening, but it was unexpected. His intelligence had indicated the humans were simple farmers and scientists, not advanced atmospheric engineers. On New Haven's surface, Dr. James Park monitored the approach from the colony's hastily established command center. The converted agricultural facility hummed with activity as colonists worked at stations that had been repurposed from farming equipment control systems to defensive coordination centers. Atmospheric processors are ready, reported Doctor from his station. We can create localized atmospheric changes across 60% of the colony area within 15 minutes of activation. Sonic excavators have been modified and positioned, added Doctor. We've tested the frequency settings against physiology simulations, should cause severe disorientation without permanent damage. Maria Santos, now serving as the unofficial military coordinator despite her retirement, studied the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. They're coming in fast and confident, probably expecting us to surrender as soon as they show their weapons. Are we ready for them? Asked James. Maria's expression was grim but determined. We're as ready as we can be with 3 days of preparation. Remember, our advantage isn't firepower, it's that they don't understand what they're facing. The first communication from the fleet came exactly as Maria had predicted, a demand for immediate surrender. Human colonists, his voice boomed across all frequencies. This is Commander of the Imperial Fleet. Your species humiliated the Empire through trickery and deception. We are here to restore the natural order. Surrender immediately and your colony will be relocated peacefully. Resist and face the consequences. In the command center, the colonists looked to Maria for guidance. As the only person with military experience, she had become their facto leader. Send a response, Maria instructed the communications officer. Tell them we decline their offer and suggest they leave our system immediately. The communications officer, a young man named David who usually managed agricultural shipping schedules, hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure? They have 12 warships. We have farming equipment. We have farming equipment that's been creatively repurposed, Maria corrected. And we have something they don't expect, human ingenuity. Send the message." The response clearly caught off guard. In his experience, colonies faced with overwhelming military force either surrendered immediately or requested terms. Outright defiance was unexpected, especially from supposedly peaceful farmers. "They're refusing to surrender," his communications officer reported. "Then we proceed to Phase 2, decided. Deploy fighters to strafe the outlying settlements. Nothing lethal, just enough to demonstrate our capabilities and encourage cooperation." The first wave of fighters swept down through New Haven's atmosphere with practiced precision. Their bioplasma cannons charged up to minimum power settings, ready to deliver warning shots that would destroy property without killing civilians. But as they approached the first target, an agricultural processing facility, something unexpected happened. "Flight leader, I'm reading atmospheric anomalies around the target zone," reported one of the pilots. "Pressure fluctuations, chemical variations. It's affecting my navigation systems." Before the flight leader could respond, a sound erupted from the facility below. It wasn't audible to human ears, but to physiology it was devastating. The modified mining sonic excavators had been calibrated to produce frequencies that would disrupt inner ear structures, causing severe vertigo and disorientation. The lead fighter immediately went into an uncontrolled spin, its pilot completely unable to maintain equilibrium. The other fighters in the formation tried to compensate, but the sonic barrage was affecting all of them. Within seconds, 3 fighters had crashed into empty fields, their pilots alive but too disoriented to maintain control. "What just happened?" demanded from the bridge of the Dominion. "Unknown sonic weapon," the tactical officer reported. "It appears to target our species' vestibular system specifically. The pilots are reporting severe disorientation and nausea." A sonic weapon. The intelligence reports said they had no military technology. "They don't, sir. Sensor analysis suggests they've modified mining equipment. The sound generators are standard sonic excavators, but they've been recalibrated to frequencies specifically harmful to our physiology." Stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had turned mining equipment into anti-weapons in a matter of days. How was that possible? "Sir," the sensor officer called out urgently, "I'm detecting massive atmospheric changes around all the major colony sites. They're releasing chemical compounds into the air." On the surface, Doctor monitored the atmospheric processors with scientific precision. "Chemical deployment is proceeding according to schedule," he reported to the command center. "Atmospheric composition in defensive zones now contains elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide, methane, and several compounds that should be harmless to humans, but problematic for respiratory systems." They discovered this the hard way when the second wave of fighters attempted to approach at lower altitude. As soon as they entered the chemically modified atmosphere around the colonies, their pilots began experiencing respiratory distress. Physiology, evolved on a world with a very specific atmospheric composition, couldn't handle the chemical cocktail the humans had created. "All fighters abort approach and return to high altitude," the flight leader ordered, his own voice strained from the atmospheric effects. "Recommend orbital bombardment to clear the chemical contamination." But orbital bombardment would require destroying the very colonies they wanted to capture intact. The whole point of this operation was to demonstrate controlled force, not to commit genocide against civilians. Found himself in an impossible position. His overwhelming military superiority was useless against opponents who could turn their environment into a weapon. The humans weren't fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like scientists, using knowledge and creativity to neutralize advantages that should have been insurmountable. "Commander," his tactical officer said carefully, "we could deploy ground troops with environmental suits." "How many do we have equipped for chemical warfare?" "About 200, sir. The rest would need to be re-equipped from the fleet's emergency supplies." "Consider the options. 200 troops to capture 8,000 humans who had already demonstrated unexpected resourcefulness." The numbers weren't encouraging, especially given what the humans had accomplished with just a few days of preparation. But before he could decide, his communications officer received an unexpected message from the planet's surface. "Commander, the humans are requesting direct communication with you. They say they have a proposal." "Put them through." the activated to show Maria Santos in the colony's command center. Behind her, could see humans working at improvised stations, monitoring displays that showed atmospheric readings, sonic weapon status, and other defensive systems. "Commander," Maria said calmly, "I believe you're beginning to understand the situation you're in." "You have delayed the inevitable with clever tricks," replied, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "But you cannot match military might indefinitely." "You're right," Maria agreed. "We can't match your military might, but we don't need to. You came here to restore prestige by demonstrating that humans are weak and easily defeated. Instead, you're discovering that we're adaptable and resourceful. Every minute you spend trying to overcome our defenses proves our point rather than yours." His mandibles clicked in frustration because he knew she was right. The longer this conflict continued, the more it looked like humans were successfully resisting supremacy. "What do you propose?" he asked. "A demonstration," Maria said. "Not of military might, but of human adaptability. Give us 12 hours to prepare, then send your best ground troops to capture our main settlement. But understand, we'll use that time to develop new countermeasures specifically for ground combat." "You're volunteering to face our elite warriors." "I'm volunteering to show the galaxy what humans can accomplish when we have a clear objective and time to work toward it. If your troops can capture our settlement after we've had time to prepare, you win. Your reputation is restored, and humanity is revealed as the weak species you believe us to be. And if you succeed in resisting, then the galaxy learns that humans are dangerous not because we're physically superior, but because we never stop learning, adapting, and improving. The choice is yours, Commander." Considered the proposal. It was risky, but it also offered the possibility of a decisive victory that would erase his arena humiliation. If his elite troops could overcome whatever the humans devised in 12 hours, it would prove that superiority was real and that the earlier defeats were flukes. 12 hours, he agreed. Then my best warriors will demonstrate what happens when inferior species challenge the Empire. "We'll be ready," Maria promised. As the communication ended, turned to his officers. "Prepare the Crimson Guard for deployment. Full combat equipment, environmental suits, and authorization to use whatever force is necessary." The Crimson Guard were the Empire's elite soldiers, veterans of dozens of conflicts, equipped with the best weapons and armor technology could provide. If anyone could overcome human trickery with superior force, it would be them. But on New Haven's surface, the humans were already working with an intensity that would have impressed any military observer. The 12 hours had given them wasn't a generous gesture. It was a gift that would allow them to demonstrate the true power of human adaptability. Dr. James Park was coordinating with teams across the colony, sharing data about physiology and discussing potential countermeasures. Doctor was designing new applications for mining equipment, creating traps and obstacles that would exploit movement patterns. Was developing chemical compounds that would be even more effective against ground troops than atmospheric modification had been against aircraft. But most importantly, the colonists were learning. Every human on New Haven was absorbing knowledge about combat, tactics, enemy weaknesses, and defensive strategies at a rate that would have seemed impossible to most alien species. As Maria had told, humans never stopped learning and adapting. The question was whether 12 hours would be enough time to develop countermeasures that could stop the Crimson Guard. The galaxy was about to find out just how dangerous human creativity could be when focused on a specific problem. And the answer would change everything about how the known species viewed the newcomers from Earth. The 12 hours passed with an intensity that transformed New Haven from a peaceful agricultural colony into something unprecedented in galactic history. A fortress designed by scientists and farmers specifically to defeat elite alien warriors. Dr. James Park hadn't slept during the entire preparation period. His xenobiology expertise had become the foundation for every defensive measure the colony was implementing. Working with teams across the settlement, he had created detailed tactical profiles of Crimson Guard capabilities and weaknesses. "Their environmental suits are their greatest strength and their greatest weakness," James explained to the assembled colonists in their final briefing. "The suits protect them from atmospheric attacks and provide enhanced strength, but they also create dependencies, disrupt their power systems, their air filtration, or their cooling systems, and their own protection becomes a liability. Maria Santos nodded from her position at the tactical display. Remember, we're not trying to kill them. We're trying to prove a point. Disable, capture if possible, but avoid lethal force unless absolutely necessary. This is about demonstrating human capabilities, not starting a war. Doctor raised her hand. The tunnel systems are ready. We've created a three-dimensional battlefield that plays to our advantages. They are used to open combat where their size and strength matter. Underground, in confined spaces, those advantages become disadvantages. Chemical systems are deployed throughout the settlement, added Doctor. Non-lethal compounds that will degrade environmental suit seals and create equipment malfunctions, plus some surprises that should confuse their sensors. David, who had become their communications coordinator despite his background in agricultural logistics, looked nervous. Are we really doing this? Fighting elite alien soldiers with farming equipment and chemistry sets? We're doing what humans have always done, Maria replied. We're using our brains to overcome superior force. Every species in the galaxy has advantages we can't match directly, but no species in the galaxy can adapt and learn as quickly as we can. Through the settlement's sensor network, they watched the launch from the fleet above. 12 ships, each carrying 10 members of the Crimson Guard, the Empire's most elite soldiers. These weren't regular troops, but veterans who had conquered worlds and defeated armies. Commander watched the deployment from the bridge of the Dominion with confidence. The Crimson Guard had never failed in a mission. Their equipment was superior to anything the humans possessed, their training was extensive, and their experience was vast. Whatever tricks the colonists had devised in 12 hours, professional soldiers would overcome them. Target zone is the main settlement, he ordered. Rapid deployment, secure the command center, capture the leadership, show them what military precision can accomplish. The first touched down at the edge of the settlement with textbook perfection. The rear doors opened, and 10 Crimson Guard warriors emerged in perfect formation. Their environmental suits gleamed with advanced technology, their weapons hummed with lethal energy, and their movements displayed the fluid coordination of elite soldiers. Squad leader scanned the settlement through his suit's enhanced sensors. The place looked almost deserted, a few humans visible in the distance, but no obvious defensive positions, no military equipment, no signs of organized resistance. Advance toward the primary objective, he ordered his squad. Maintain formation and watch for ambush positions. The Crimson Guard moved forward with professional caution, their sensors sweeping for threats. But as they approached the first buildings, something strange began happening. Their environmental suits started registering minor system anomalies. Air filtration working harder than necessary, cooling systems cycling irregularly, power consumption increasing without apparent cause. Squad leader, one of his warriors reported, my suit's diagnostics are showing elevated stress on multiple systems. No critical failures, but everything's working harder than it should be. Same here, confirmed another. Air filters are clogged with something the sensors can't identify. Power drain is 15% above normal. Checked his own systems and confirmed the same issues. Whatever the humans had done to the environment around their settlement, it was designed to stress equipment without triggering obvious alarms. What the Crimson Guard didn't know was that Doctor had spent hours analyzing environmental suit specifications from captured equipment databases. He had developed a cocktail of microscopic particles and chemical compounds that would gradually degrade suit performance without causing immediate failure. Maintain advance, ordered. Equipment stress is manageable, reaching the objective takes priority. But as they moved deeper into the settlement, the ground beneath their feet felt unstable in places, forcing them to adjust their route. Strange sounds echoed from buildings around them, not threatening, but confusing their audio sensors. And the air itself seemed to shimmer occasionally, as if heat distortions were affecting their optical systems. Unknown to they were walking through what Dr. James Park had termed a sensory confusion field. Every sensor system their suits relied on was being subtly interfered with by carefully placed devices that created false readings, masked signatures, and generated distracting inputs. The first real surprise came when Squad reached what appeared to be the main street leading to the command center. As they stepped onto the paved area, the ground gave way beneath them. But instead of falling into a simple pit trap, they found themselves sliding down a smooth tunnel that had been carved using mining equipment. The tunnel was too narrow for their bulky environmental suits to allow easy movement, but not narrow enough to trap them completely. They slid helplessly for several meters before emerging into a small chamber where they could regain their footing. "Report," demanded as his squad sorted themselves out. "No injuries, but we're underground," his second-in-command replied. "Tunnel network carved with precision. This wasn't hastily built." Above ground, other Crimson Guard squads were discovering similar surprises. What looked like solid ground would reveal hidden slopes that channeled them toward specific locations. Buildings that appeared empty would suddenly produce sounds and sensor readings suggesting human presence, only to be revealed as automated distractions when investigated. In the underground chamber, Squad found themselves facing multiple tunnel exits. Their suits' mapping systems were having difficulty determining which direction led toward the command center. "Choose the center tunnel," decided. "Maintain formation and be ready for additional traps." As they advanced through the tunnel, the environmental stress on their suits increased dramatically. The air was thick with particles that clogged filters, the walls were lined with materials that interfered with their sensors, and the temperature fluctuations were forcing their cooling systems to work overtime. "Squad leader," one warrior reported with concern, "my power levels are dropping faster than expected. At current consumption rates, I have maybe 4 hours of operation remaining." "All squads are reporting similar issues," its communication operator confirmed. "The humans have created environmental conditions specifically designed to degrade our equipment performance." This realization was both impressive and concerning. In 12 hours, human civilians had analyzed military equipment and developed countermeasures that were systematically degrading the performance of the galaxy's most advanced environmental suits. The tunnel system led them through a maze of passages that seemed designed to confuse and disorient. Just when they thought they were making progress toward their objective, they would find themselves back where they started, or facing a dead end that forced them to backtrack. Doctor had designed the tunnel network using principles from both mining engineering and maze psychology. The passages created the illusion of progress while actually channeling them through predetermined routes that maximized their exposure to environmental countermeasures. "Sir," the communication operator called out urgently, "I'm losing contact with squads 3 and 7. Last known positions were in the tunnel network, but their signals are degrading." What the operator didn't know was that the tunnels were lined with materials that interfered with communication frequencies. Doctor, despite his agricultural background, had quickly learned enough about electromagnetic interference to design communication dead zones throughout the underground network. Meanwhile, on the surface, Squad Leader was leading his unit toward what their intelligence indicated was the human command center. Unlike the other squads that had been channeled underground, his team had managed to maintain surface access by avoiding the obvious trap zones. But as they approached the target building, they encountered a new form of resistance. The air around the structure was filled with a fine mist that their sensors identified as harmless water vapor mixed with various organic compounds. "Advance through the mist," ordered. "Maintain visual contact and watch for ambush positions." As they entered the mist, their suit sensors began malfunctioning in unexpected ways. Visual displays flickered with false contacts, audio sensors picked up phantom sounds, and their navigation systems reported position data that couldn't be accurate. The mist wasn't just water vapor. Doctor had created a complex mixture of compounds that would interact specifically with sensor technology, creating false readings and system confusion without causing obvious damage. Inside the command center, Maria Santos watched the tactical displays that showed the positions of all Crimson Guard squads. The humans had achieved something remarkable. They had turned a direct military assault into a complex puzzle that was systematically degrading enemy capabilities. "Squad status report," she requested. "Underground teams are operating at 60% efficiency," reported Doctor. "Power drain and communication disruption are working as designed. They're making minimal progress toward objectives." "Surface team is dealing with sensor interference," added Doctor. "They're advancing, but slowly and with increasing confusion about their actual position relative to targets." James looked up from his monitoring station. Most importantly, they're learning. Every squad is radiating frustration and confusion back to their command ship. The psychological impact may be as important as the tactical success. On the Dominion, Commander was indeed experiencing frustration as he watched his elite forces struggle against opponents who shouldn't have been able to resist them at all. Crimson Guard status, he demanded. All squads operational, but experiencing equipment stress and mission delays, his tactical officer reported. Environmental conditions are degrading suit performance, and the battlefield has been modified to channel our forces through disadvantageous terrain. How long to reach objectives at current progress rates? Unknown, sir. The tunnel network appears to be deliberately designed to confuse navigation, and surface teams are reporting sensor malfunctions that are slowing their advance. Stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His best soldiers, equipped with the Empire's most advanced technology, were being systematically outmaneuvered by farmers and scientists using improvised equipment and environmental modifications. But the most shocking realization was still to come. As Surface Squad finally fought through the sensory interference and approached the command center building, they discovered that it was empty. No human presence detected, reported. Building appears to be abandoned, requesting permission to investigate other structures. Negative, replied. That was definitely identified as their command center. Where are the humans? The answer came from an unexpected source. David's voice suddenly echoed from speakers throughout the settlement and was transmitted directly to the fleet. Commander, this is the New Haven Colonial Defense Force. Your soldiers have been wandering around our settlement for 3 hours without achieving any of their objectives. During that time, we've gathered detailed intelligence on Crimson Guard equipment, tactics, and capabilities. We've also successfully demonstrated that human ingenuity can neutralize military advantages that should have been overwhelming. His mandibles clicked in fury. Where are you? Face my warriors directly instead of hiding behind tricks and traps. We're exactly where we've always been, Maria Santos's voice joined the transmission. In our homes, protecting our families, using our knowledge and creativity to overcome superior force. That's what humans do, Commander. We adapt, we learn, and we find ways to win even when we shouldn't be able to. The psychological impact of this revelation was devastating. The Crimson Guard weren't being defeated by a hidden army or secret weapons. They were being outmaneuvered by the same civilians they had been sent to capture, people who were using agricultural equipment and scientific knowledge to neutralize the Empire's military superiority. Your soldiers are welcome to continue their mission, Maria continued. But every minute they spend in our settlement provides more evidence that humans are far more dangerous than anyone in the galaxy realized. The question you need to ask yourself is, what does this say about human military potential? As if to emphasize her point, the underground squads finally emerged from the tunnel network, not at their intended objectives, but at the exact location where they had originally landed. They had spent hours in a complex maze that had ultimately led them in a complete circle while systematically degrading their equipment and gathering intelligence on their capabilities. The implications were clear to every observer, both on the surface and in the fleet above. If human civilians could achieve this level of tactical success against elite alien soldiers in just 12 hours of preparation, what could trained human military forces accomplish given adequate time and resources 3 months after the New Haven incident? The Galactic Council chambers were packed beyond capacity. Representatives from over 200 species had gathered for an emergency session to address what many were calling the human question. The debate had been raging for weeks, but today would see the first formal vote on proposals that could reshape the entire balance of galactic civilization. Ambassador Williams of the Human Federation took his place at the speaker's podium, acutely aware that every word he spoke would be analyzed by intelligence agencies across known space. The attention was both flattering and concerning. Humanity had gone from being ignored by most galactic powers to being the primary topic of discussion in every political forum. High Arbiter called for order with her ceremonial staff. The Council recognizes Ambassador Williams of the Human Federation. You may present your species' perspective on the current situation. Williams cleared his throat and began what he knew would be one of the most important speeches in human history. Honored representatives, 3 months ago most of you had never heard of Earth or humans. We were considered a minor species of little consequence, physically weak, technologically dependent, politically insignificant. Today, we're the subject of military assessments, diplomatic initiatives, and alliance proposals from across the galaxy. What changed? He activated a holographic display showing footage from both the arena fight and the New Haven defense. What changed is that the galaxy discovered something about humanity that we've always known about ourselves. We never stop learning, adapting, and improving. Captain's victory over Commander wasn't achieved through superior technology or physical strength. It was accomplished through knowledge, preparation, and the application of principles that any human could learn. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as delegates discussed the implications among themselves. The New Haven defense demonstrated the same principle on a larger scale, Williams continued. Faced with overwhelming military force, human civilians used their expertise, creativity, and collaborative problem-solving abilities to develop effective countermeasures in a matter of hours. They turned farming equipment into weapons, transformed their environment into a tactical advantage, and proved that human ingenuity can overcome any challenge when properly applied. Ambassador of the Trade Federation raised a tentacled appendage. Ambassador Williams, the Council appreciates your species' accomplishments, but many of us are concerned about the implications. If humans can develop such capabilities so rapidly, what does that mean for galactic security? Williams had been expecting this question. It means that humanity can be either your greatest ally or your most dangerous opponent, depending on how you choose to interact with us. We prefer alliance and cooperation, but we will defend ourselves if threatened. The debate that followed was intense. Some species, led by the and the Crystal Collective, argued for immediate integration of humanity into the galactic community as equals. Others, particularly the Hegemony Defense Force and remnants of the Empire, pushed for restrictions and monitoring of human expansion. But the most significant voice in the debate belonged to someone who hadn't been expected to participate. Commander entered the chamber during a recess, his presence causing an immediate stir among the assembled delegates. The warrior's defeat had made him a symbol of humanity's unexpected capabilities, and his appearance at the council session was unprecedented. "I request permission to address the council," announced. High Arbiter hesitated. "Commander, you are not an official delegate." "I am the individual most qualified to speak about human combat capabilities," interrupted. "I have faced them in direct combat and commanded forces against their defenses. If the Council is to make informed decisions about humanity, they should hear from someone who has experienced their abilities firsthand." After a brief consultation, the Council agreed to hear his testimony. Took the speaker's podium with the same confident bearing he had displayed in the arena, but his words carried a humility that surprised many listeners. 3 months ago, I believed humans were weak creatures who relied entirely on technology because they lacked natural weapons and armor. I was wrong. Humans are not weak. They are the most dangerous species I have encountered in 20 years of military service. The chamber fell silent. They are dangerous not because of their physical capabilities, but because of their mental ones. Every human is a potential strategist, engineer, and warrior combined. They look at any situation and immediately begin analyzing how to improve their position, how to overcome obstacles, how to turn disadvantages into advantages. Activated his own holographic display, showing tactical analyses of both encounters. In the arena, Captain defeated me using techniques that any human can learn. She didn't rely on special equipment or genetic advantages. She used knowledge that her species has been developing and refining for thousands of years. That knowledge is not secret or restricted. It is freely shared among all humans. He paused to let this sink in. At New Haven, I witnessed something even more remarkable. Human civilians with no military training whatsoever successfully neutralized elite forces using improvised tactics and converted civilian equipment. They accomplished in 12 hours what military academies might study for years. Ambassador or of the Hegemony Defense Force interrupted. "Commander, are you suggesting that humans pose a threat to galactic security?" "I am suggesting that humans pose a threat to anyone who threatens them," replied. "But they also represent the greatest potential ally any species could hope to have. The question is not whether humans are dangerous. They clearly are. The question is whether we want that danger directed against us or alongside us. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates absorbed the implications of testimony. Here was the very individual who had been humiliated by human capabilities arguing for their integration into galactic society. Dr. Han, who had studied human behavior, requested permission to present her research findings. Honored delegates, I have spent months analyzing human social and learning patterns. What makes them unique is not just their individual adaptability, but their collective intelligence. Humans share knowledge more freely and effectively than any species we have studied. When one human learns something, that knowledge rapidly spreads to other humans through their communication networks. She displayed charts showing human information exchange patterns. This means that human capabilities are constantly improving across their entire species. Every tactical innovation, every technological breakthrough, every strategic insight is quickly disseminated to all human communities. They are not just adaptable individuals, they are an adaptable civilization. The implications were staggering. If humans could share knowledge and innovations as effectively as Dr. Han suggested, their capabilities would continue to grow at an exponential rate. Ambassador Williams requested permission to respond to the testimony. The distinguished speakers have accurately described human capabilities, but I want to address the underlying concern I'm hearing. Yes, humans are adaptable and dangerous when threatened, but our history shows that we prefer cooperation to conflict. We become dangerous only when we perceive threats to our survival or freedom. He activated a display showing human diplomatic initiatives since first contact. In the 3 months since the arena incident, humans have proposed 17 cooperative research projects with other species, offered technical assistance to 4 different colonies, and initiated cultural exchange programs with 12 civilizations. We are not seeking conquest or dominance. We are seeking partnership and mutual benefit. The debate continued for hours, but gradually a consensus began to emerge. Humanity was too dangerous to antagonize and too valuable to exclude. The question became how to integrate them into galactic society in a way that benefited everyone. The final vote was closer than many had expected, but the result was historic. Formal recognition of humanity as a major galactic power with full rights and responsibilities within the galactic community. But perhaps more significantly, the Council approved something that had never been done before: the establishment of the Galactic Collaborative Defense Initiative, a joint military and research organization that would combine the adaptive capabilities of humanity with the specialized strengths of other species. 6 months later, the first joint training exercises between human forces and alien military units were taking place on worlds throughout known space. The results were remarkable. Human tactical flexibility combined with strength, analytical capabilities, and defensive technologies created military capabilities that exceeded what any species could achieve alone. Captain Sarah, now promoted to colonel and serving as the human liaison to the Collaborative Defense Initiative, stood on the observation deck of the joint training facility, watching mixed species units work together with an efficiency that would have been impossible just months earlier. "Remarkable, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. She turned to see Commander approaching. His bioplasma cannons had been replaced with non-lethal training equipment, and his bearing was more relaxed than she remembered from their arena encounter. "What's remarkable?" Sarah asked. "How quickly assumptions can change," replied. 6 months ago, I believed we're the ultimate warriors. Now I command a mixed species unit that includes humans, and their tactical innovations have made my soldiers more effective than they ever were fighting alone. "Collaboration tends to have that effect," Sarah observed. "Every species brings something unique to the table." "True, but humans bring something especially unique: the ability to see potential in everything and everyone. You look at a warrior and see someone who could benefit from human tactical training. You look at mining equipment and see defensive weapons. You look at problems and see opportunities." They watched as a squad of mixed human and alien soldiers successfully completed a training scenario that had been designed to be nearly impossible. "Do you think it will last?" asked. "This cooperation, this integration?" Sarah considered the question carefully. Human history suggests that cooperation is unstable when it's based on fear or temporary advantage. But when it's based on mutual benefit and shared goals, it can last for generations. And what are humanity's shared goals with the rest of the galaxy? The same goals we've always had, Sarah replied. To learn, to grow, to explore, to build something better than what came before. The only difference is that now we're doing it with partners instead of alone. As if to emphasize her point, a mixed species research team in the facility below successfully demonstrated a new defensive technology that combined human adaptability principles with alien engineering capabilities. The result was something neither species could have developed independently. The galaxy is changing, observed. The galaxy is learning, Sarah corrected, and humans love to learn alongside others. In the months that followed, human colonies throughout known space became centers of innovation and collaboration. The rapid exchange of knowledge between species accelerated technological development, improved defensive capabilities, and created unprecedented prosperity for all participants. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson about the danger of underestimating others based on assumptions. Humans might not have the biggest claws or the strongest armor, but they had something potentially more powerful: the intelligence to turn any situation to their advantage and the determination never to give up. And in a universe full of unknown threats and untapped opportunities, those qualities made them the most valuable allies any species could hope to have. The human motto that emerged during this period became known throughout the galaxy: "We can't fight without weapons. Watch us lift our hands and invite you closer." It served as both a warning to potential enemies and a promise to potential friends. Humanity would meet any challenge with creativity, determination, and the unshakable belief that there was always a way to win if you were smart enough to find it. The stars themselves seemed brighter now that humanity had taken its place among them, not as conquerors, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all: the continued exploration and understanding of the infinite cosmos that surrounded them all. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and everyone knew it. The question was what would happen next. The message would prove prophetic in ways that no one, human or alien, could have anticipated. And this was only the beginning of what humanity would show the stars.